Hi, I'm Kristen Noland, owner and editor at Noland Editing, and today we're going to talk about time of death. So, crime novelists, this is for you. So, time of death is a best estimate game. Yet, I recently watched a detective show where the coroner stated that the time of death was 12:32. It's incredible that they knew the exact time. In fact, it's nearly impossible to know exactly when someone died. I'm sure you've seen it many times where a watch is broken, and that's the explanation for an exact time. But is it good enough? What if the watch was broken before they were attacked? What if the watch was symbolic or a family heirloom that was broken years ago? What if it constantly loses or gains time, like the older watches? A medical examiner or coroner will give detectives a time of death range of about 2 to 4 hours, but there are circumstances where an estimate might be days, and that's the best that they can say. Longer estimates usually happen when a body is found long after death. But there are many ways to determine time of death: body temperature, rigor mortis, liver mortis, or lividity, degree of putrefaction, stomach contents, cornea cloudiness, vitreous potassium level, and insect activity. Sounds gross. It is a bit, but if you look at it scientifically, it's not so bad. I find it fascinating, yet I still wouldn't want to be an Emmy or a coroner. So let's discuss body temperature first. Body temperature is usually where they begin. Body temperature is taken either rectally or from the liver, which is more accurate, but an incision must be made in order to get it. It's not the most common way. The incision would have to be done even if there's a stab wound that would be to the liver, because you don't want to contaminate the entry wound. After death, the body temp will level with the ambient temperature. So a warm environment will affect a body differently than a cold one. Average body temperature drops by about 1 to or 1.5 degrees per hour, though there are a lot of other factors to consider, including weight, clothing that they're wearing, age, environmental temperature, and the conditions. Body temperature in hot climates will actually raise to equilibrate with its surroundings. So if it's 120 degrees outside, then the body temperatures are actually going to raise instead of drop. A body left on a frozen lake when it's windy and snowing outside will drop temperature way faster than if it was found in a home with the temperature set at about 70 degrees and no windows or doors open to cool it off. Unless your crime novel is a forensic one, I don't suggest that you need to mention specific temperatures for that. If you want to do that, you might need help from a professional to be accurate. Otherwise, mentioning the particular difficulties that the Emmy had in determining time of death from body temperature should be good enough. For example, a character might say, judging by the wind and rain and cool temperatures last night, the victim being well bundled up, I estimate time of death to be between 6 and 12 hours. Another great help to find the time of death to evaluate is rigor mortis. Rigor mortis is the stiffening and contracting of muscles after death, has a general rule of 12, 12, 12. 12 hours until the body is stiff, 12 hours that it stays stiff, and 12 hours for it to return to flaccid again. But the ambient temperature plays a role as well. Higher temperatures are going to speed up the process, and colder temperatures are going to slow it down. If a body is frozen, rigor may not happen until the body is actually thawed. There are also cases where a body has a cadaveric spasm, a spasm that locks the body in the posture it was in the moment of death. This usually happens when an extremely violent or an extremely emotional situation has occurred. Rigor mortis may be used when the body temperature can't, for example, when the body has equaled that of its environment already. So let's move on to liver mortis. Liver mortis has nothing to do with the liver. It's about lividity. Lividity is the staining of tissues usually purple, but depending on the environment and maybe medications that the victim was on, it could be pink or red. After death, the blood exits the capillaries, veins, and arteries and pulls in the tissues. Gravity plays a huge part in assessing lividity by pulling the blood down. Livor mortis usually begins between 30 minutes and 2 hours after death, and it hits its maximum at 8 to 12 hours. Fixed lividity happens around 6 to 8 hours. The medical examiner can also tell approximately if and approximately when after death the body has been moved. So let's say a character was killed in the bathroom of their apartment. The killer let them lay on their side for an hour while they decided where to dump the body. Blood will pool towards the side of the body that they were lying on. Then the killer takes the body for an hour's ride out of town in their trunk, where the body is laying on its other side. The staining happens on the other side now. When they dig a grave and place the body on its back, gravity will pull the blood down. So the staining is near the corpse's back. I say near and not the actual back because when a body is pressed against a hard surface, the blood can't pull there. So it pulls around instead of underneath or on their backs. Degree of putrefaction is another determiner. Putrefaction is the decay or decomposition of the body. Like other determiners, it has a pattern, but that pattern is again affected by its surroundings. Putrefaction happens in two distinct ways. One is self-digestion, and the other is digestion by bacteria. Both are faster in warmer temperatures and slower in colder conditions. So while the degree of putrefaction can help with determining time of death, the medical examiner, as in all cases with these, is going to account for all the factors before they make an estimate. Stomach contents. We get this a lot in crime fiction, especially on TV shows, but stomach contents are usually combined with other information like witness statements in order to come up with a specific time of death. The stomach empties on average 2 hours after the final meal. Protein and fat digest slower than carbs and sugars, but it's a fair approximation. Alcohol and medications can also slow or hasten this process. A witness may say they saw a character eating dinner at 7 p.m. and their stomach contains nothing. This simply means that they died after 9 p.m. On its own, it's not a reliable method for the time of death. Cloudy and opaque corneas happen within a few hours of death and depends on whether the victim's eyes were open or not, but it could take up to 24 hours if they are closed. Vitreous humor is the clear, thick liquid that fills the eyeballs after death, and the potassium levels increase at a constant rate over the next few days. Now let's take a look at insect activity. No one likes to think about critters that devour people if they've been left somewhere, but insects are valuable and useful in determining time of death. Usually within 1 hour, blowflies descend. They lay eggs, the eggs hatch within hours, the larvae feed, grow, and molt, and then 12 days later, they become adult flies, and the process repeats. So knowing the life cycle can aid in determining time of death. But insects are useful in toxicology too, as they can be tested for chemicals contained in the body that they fed on. A bit gross, I know. The medical examiner or coroner will use some of the methods to establish time of death. They don't use all of them. Once they feel they are reasonably confident, they won't continue digging unless there is a suspicion that the time of death was wrong on their first estimate. All of this or none of this may end up in your novel, but it's important to know what the processes are and how they work together to accurately determine the time of death. And now that you know, you can use the process to lead your investigator and readers in the right direction, or use them to place red herrings. For example, the ME Tech originally estimated time of death as between 4 and 8 a.m., but now the medical examiner, because of last night's chill, thought could be between 2 and 4 a.m. Another example is A character might say at the house, I couldn't see the livor mortis on the victim's backside, but due to the blood pooling there, I now know she was sitting probably in a chair for at least an hour before she was placed on the floor. So these things are very helpful to a detective. I hope you found this helpful. I want to special thanks to Dr. D.P. Lyle for his detailed descriptions in Forensics, a Guide for Writers. Until next time, happy writing and revising. I'm Kristen Noland. Bye.